Hello?
Mr. White?
Who is this?
The name's Bond, James Bond.
Did you feel it, did you? Well, you needn't worry. The second is... Yes. Considerably.
Yeah, welcome into Action Movie Rewind, where we do deep dives into action movies. This is episode 17, gentlemen, of Action Movie Rewind. And most notably, this is a milestone here, not only in Action Movie Rewind, it's a milestone in Judd Zulgad's life. Because this is the first ever James Bond movie that Judd Zulgad has ever watched front to back.
Yes.
And we're going to do a dive into it. Casino Royale, 2006, the first ever Daniel Craig James Bond movie. He was scheduled, actually, the seventh Daniel Craig James Bond movie was supposed to come out in April, but COVID derailed it. And now it's going to come out, I don't know, probably not anytime soon. So I'll give the summary, and then we will sort of give the floor to Judd to start out with his initial thoughts on the first ever James Bond movie that he has watched. All right?
All right.
So James Bond's first 007 mission takes him to Madagascar, where he is to spy on a terrorist. Not everything goes as planned, and Bond decides to investigate independently of the MI6 agency in order to track down the rest of the terrorist cell. Following a lead to the Bahamas, he encounters Dimitrios, creepy Dimitrios, who's also a bad poker player, and his girlfriend Solange. He learns that Dimitrios is involved with Le Chiffre, a banker to the world's terrorist organizations. Secret Service intelligence reveals that Le Chiffre is planning to raise money in a high-stakes poker game in the Montenegro at Le Casino Royale. MI6 assigns James Bond to play against him in the poker game, knowing that if Le Chiffre loses, it'll destroy his entire organization. M places Bond under the watchful eye of beguiling Vesper Lind. At first skeptical of what value Vesper can provide, Bond's interest in her deepens as they brave danger together and even torture at the hands of Le Chiffre. In Montenegro, Bond allies himself with Mathis, MI6's local field agent, and Felix Leiter, representing the CIA. The marathon game proceeds with dirty tricks and violence, raising the stakes beyond blood money and reaching a terrifying climax. 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, a $150 million budget that led to $600+ million at the box office. Judd Zulgad, what are your initial thoughts
On my first
the
Bond
James
film?
Bond franchise? And then we'll get into everything else.
All right. So I'm going to be very careful here because it's just clear I'm not a spy film guy. But much like people who don't like baseball, but you say, but baseball's great, right? Like baseball, I like baseball. This is a good movie. It's just not my type of film, but that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I did think it was a little bit too long, but like it was really good. And in fact, it almost falls outside of the purview of what we want because I don't know that there's that much to joke about when it comes to this film. Like it was really well done.
Yeah.
It's a really good film. But I would compare my takeaway to a person who goes to a baseball game is like, I really don't like this sport. And then they often rip it. Like, I'm not going to rip it. It was really well done. It's not my cup of tea, no pun intended.
So I love James Bond movies. I've seen every James Bond movie 5 to 6 times minimum. I've probably seen this movie 20 times. This is probably my either first or second favorite ever James Bond movie. And it's a masterpiece. Like it is a really good James Bond.
And the Roger
movie.
Moore ones were more tongue in cheek, correct?
They were very campy.
In fact, this is not campy to me.
In retrospect, like we will do another James Bond movie or two in Action Movie Rewind. We should definitely do a Roger Moore one because Roger Moore ones are just like it's an hour and a half of one-liners.
Yeah,
and
which is
the name's St. John Smythe. Like he just like everything is, and then I would say even though the Sean Connery Bonds are also more of the serious tone. So Roger Moore was more of like the funny tongue-in-cheek Bond.
Right.
Daniel Craig and Sean Connery definitely more like serious
sex symbols, right?
Sex symbol Bonds, but also had some charm. And Daniel Craig's personality came out in some of the other Bond movies, not as much in this one.
Sure.
But this is like from front to back. And plus, he entered this Bond franchise. He entered this with a ton of criticism. Like, he wasn't dark-haired. He wasn't the tall, dark James Bond that we've come to know. Pierce Brosnan,
but
right?
But he's built very well.
Actually,
formed ass.
My first question off of this is when Daniel Craig gets out of the ocean in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And he's got the 10-pack abs. He's got the short, tight swim trunks. How inadequate did you guys feel? Because
I felt great.
The only good thing about him is I think he is short, so he's a small guy. So, like, if he had size too, if he was Clooney, then I'm done. Then I'm done. But he's not that big. But he was good. Now, was Pierce Brosnan good as Bond? Did you like him?
All right, so now I'm
curious about the categories.
I've got a whole section of this podcast we can devote to the Bond rankings and my thoughts on all the Bonds.
Okay.
And if you want that right now, I think we should wait.
Sure.
Let's get into some of the movie, and then I'll give you my take on Pierce Brosnan. That's fine. I've ranked all 6 James Bonds, and I will give you my take on all 6 James Bonds. Declan, what is your level of James Bond experience heading into Casino Royale here?
I've seen Casino Royale. I've seen Quantum Solace, and I've seen, is it Die Another Day? Is that the last one before Craig?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes,
Die Another Day was definitely a Pierce Brosnan movie.
I've seen those 3.
Okay.
Those are my knowledge.
So you guys have basically no experience with James
Little
Bond.
to none.
So this
Little
is
to none.
My mom loved them. I didn't watch them. That's basically my experience.
So let's start with Judd Zulgad, your favorite part of Casino Royale.
Okay, my favorite part, because it was implausible, it was campy, but it was funny, is when he gets poisoned and goes into cardiac arrest, right, while playing cards.
Yep.
And then he stumbles outside, and he goes to his special Bond car, which has a defibrillator in it of some sort, and he calls back to the base, and they're like trying to, as he's dying, of course, walk him through how not to die and how to defibrillate his own heart, and he basically can't do it. And then Vesper Lynd comes out at the last second, and she uses the defibrillator, and it not only saves him, but he's absolutely fine. He's absolutely fine. He goes back in, he plays cards, he wins. He goes out, I believe, with Vesper after that and has a celebratory dinner. It was so implausible, but yet funny. And again, everything they did basically, I think, was pretty well done. Like, it was off the charts goofy, but the scene was actually okay. So my favorite part was that they found a way to sort of have fun with that scene, and that scene itself was just like, what are you doing? But it's fine.
James Bond gets pretty lucky a couple times in this movie. Like, he should definitely be dead 2 or 3 times.
It's another one of those. It's another classic. Okay, in real life, you just kill the guy.
He's also smart enough to take the bullets out of the gun for some of his adversaries.
Yeah, but he also dodges, again, machine gun fire. Like everybody that we see every week now, boys, there's a scene or two with the guy being shot at, not with a gun, with a machine gun. So bullets are like, bang, 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 bang. And somehow, Bond, just like our guy last week, John McClane, manages to dodge every bullet.
Yeah, in some of the more rugged movies, like John McClane, guys like John McClane, or if it's Nicolas Cage in Con Air, those guys might take a bullet shot to like the forearm or to to the bicep or something,
shoulder maybe,
and they're bleeding. James Bond is very rarely like bullet wound, shot, etc. You know, he's not like the superhuman strength guy. He's more of he's the tactical in the shadows guy. What was your favorite part of Casino Royale, Declan?
I loved the initial chase scene in Uganda, like the basically the opening scene after
where he's chasing after the terrorist guy.
Yeah, the parkour scene essentially. In fact, I would like you to rank which chase scene was better in the cat and mouse scene between the chase in Uganda and then the airport scene in Miami when he's also trying to hunt down that guy.
The airport
both of them
scene's
are
good.
really good.
Yeah, the airport scene's good in that. I think I like the airport scene a little bit, but both are amazing. And I love that they started off like, all right, Daniel Craig's going to be the Bond. People aren't going to really buy into him. How do we get people to buy into him? And it's like, let's have sort of a yin and yang chase scene where he's definitely following this guy throughout some construction site, but they're both attacking the different things differently. So the nimble terrorist guy jumps over and through a window at the top of the wall. Bond breaks through it, right? So we're showing that Daniel Craig is not like a finesse Bond. He is a brute strength Bond. I did love at the end of the second chase scene where he's trying to prevent the Skyfleet plane from being blown to the sky at the Miami airport. he outsmarts that terrorist guy by hooking the explosive to his belt or whatever in the altercation. And so this guy thinks he got away with it, and he hits the detonate button and then starts to hear the beeping, and it's hooked to his belt. That's a great part.
Explain to me the first chase scene, though. The philosophy of deciding to run up as high as possible to like the crane. It's like if I was being chased, I would probably just go straight as much as possible, but flat ground.
It's a good question.
Like they
What's his
continue to
end
go
game there?
up the building.
Yeah, I don't know what the
And why
logic was
didn't
there.
Bond just sort of wait him out? He had to come down.
That's true. If he's at the top of that crane,
You don't have to go get him.
I guess the thought there could be because he's working for a terrorist cell.
I mean, I know why they did it, but
Does the terrorist cell have a helicopter that would have just like grabbed him off of the crane? But
He
then,
lo-
of course, like now you know that there's a terrorist helicopter, you could just shoot it down.
he also looked in trouble. Terrorist
the
guy.
terrorist
did.
guy?
Yeah, terrorist guy was in trouble. there.
He didn't think Bond was going to be able to keep up with him.
No,
But he was incorrect.
and Bond did struggle a little bit.
Yeah. I would say my favorite part of Casino Royale was probably the product placement. Like, this is going to sound weird, but the product placement
You
in
of
this
all
movie.
people, yeah?
Yeah. Like, they do a pretty good subtle job, but if you notice, like, he's driving 3 or 4 different types of cars. They get the Ford logo zoomed in at one point. He's driving a Ford in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
He's using a Sony Ericsson phone, which I don't know how much they paid for that product placement, but I don't think it really helped their causes in
Do
the
they-
next 3-year
I was
window
gonna
with the
say-
iPhone coming out.
Do they still exist? Does the Sony Ericsson phone still on the market?
I'm going to guess it probably doesn't.
No.
There was also a moment where he's talking with Vesper and she asks, "Is that a Rolex?" And he says, "No, it's an Omega."
Yeah.
And I don't remember. Oh, it was a Range Rover. The Range Rover product placement where rich guy drives up to, I think he was in the Bahamas at this point.
Yeah. You gotta park this
Rich
car.
guy drives up, thinks that Bond is the valet guy, tosses in the keys, and Bond gets in, rams the car into the railing to serve 2 purposes. One, to say screw you to the guy that tossed him the keys, but also, wisely, to get the security guards to come out so he could go in and review the footage of bad guy sending the ellipsis text on his
Which
Sony
he did
Ericsson
with no
phone.
problem, though. Like, he got into their booth to watch that film and was like, is there nobody at the hotel to see him go in and be like,
No,
yeah,
they're all
some guy
out.
went
They're all
in.
out taking care
No,
of
I know,
the
but
rich guy.
like at the front desk or something. When they see him duck in that room, it was just a very interesting.
Well, I mean,
thing.
the front desk gal probably does. Like, what's she gonna do?
And she liked him too.
She did.
She was attracted to James.
She was into
Who
it.
wasn't, honestly.
A lot of great rich people.
we got to talk about Declan's crush on Daniel Craig before
do.
we're done. Can we do that?
We'll definitely get there for
All right,
sure.
good.
There are a lot of generally a lot of rich people things in this movie. There's a $10 million buy-in poker game. But I think my favorite rich people thing in this movie, this is sort of my like 1B favorite thing, is you're at the Bahamas. It's obviously this like lavish resort that they're staying at. And there's a gorgeous woman riding a white horse on the beach. Like, can you think of a more rich people thing than riding a white horse on a beach on some amazing
And you know what?
ocean island resort?
She also likes James.
She did. It turned out that she liked him.
Of
quite
course,
a bit.
then she ends up dead, but that was too bad.
Did you catch the part where so they get done doing their thing together on the floor of the hotel room? So she has now cheated on this Demetrios guy. And Bond realizes now through their conversation that Demetrios is part of this terrorist group and needs to go to the Miami airport to thwart the attack on the Skyfleet plane.
Mm-hmm.
And so he calls down to room service and asks for a bottle of champagne. And whoever was on the phone, you couldn't hear what they were asking, but they clearly were asking, 2 glasses, sir? And he goes, what? No, 1.
One.
And hangs
Yes.
up.
And then he goes,
Very courteous of him, though.
Yeah.
Getting her a bottle of champagne.
oh,
so she
he's
can
got a
drink
big
herself.
budget.
He
His
does.
budget, man, it must be really, really big. No concerns whatsoever.
MI6 definitely.
They've got it.
Now, does he fill out expense reports? How does that work with James Bond? When he's ordering like 9 vodka martinis, does he fill out an expense report, hand that in to Judi Dench at the
It
end
seems
of the
like he operates by his own expense rules, right? Like I don't think he's too concerned about the MI6 budget.
Yeah.
I think he just spends it.
Well, like, and the guy that tossed him the keys knows that it was him that destroyed the Range Rover. I'm assuming that was probably a rental Range Rover, but that's probably $5,000 plus of damage. Does that bill get put on the desk of Judi Dench at MI6? I don't know. Questions that need to be answered with James Bond movies.
Fair enough.
All right, what was your least favorite part of Casino Royale, Judd?
Okay. Mine is very, very simple. And it's probably going to surprise both of you guys, but it was the opening song by Chris Cornell.
No!
Which never bleeping ended.
Top 5 Bond
Yeah.
theme song.
I don't
Top
need-
5 Bond theme
You
song.
love Cornell, don't
that-
you?
He's okay. But anyway, it was at least 4 minutes, okay?
Well,
let's get
I've got
to
news
movie.
for you. There's, 25 Bond movies?
Let's get...
They all have full songs to start the...
Right, but McCartney, I can handle. McCartney, okay. There's some great Bond tunes. I'm saying this is one of my... This was one where I said, okay, let's shorten this thing up. Let's go back.
I really
2 minutes
enjoy
tops.
I love this
I loved it.
2 minute stops.
Great.
No, Bond's got some great. The Bond films have some great songs. I just thought that this one I wanted to get to the movie. Pace a movie. Again, pace a movie. I'm not saying Cornell can't do a song at the time. I'm saying that Cornell just cut it shorter or
I will say,
get done.
if your battle with James Bond movies is pace of movie, you're watching a Yankees-Red Sox game.
That's what
every
I'm
single
saying.
time you strap in for a Bond movie.
But that's my point.
There's not like an hour and a half snappy Bond movie.
But I can't-
They're very self-congratulatory.
But it would be unfair for me to say it's crap because it's not. I realize it's well done.
You just want to get to the...
I just want to get through it,
Sure.
and it's not my cup of tea to sit there and watch the pitcher step off the bleeping rubber and the batter step out. You're right. It's Yankee Sox. Down to the classic heritage of the films themselves, it's Yankee Sox. But they go forever. It's midnight. I want to go home.
Dex, what was your least favorite part about Casino Royale?
Okay, so this is really tricky because it's an integral part of the movie and it's an integral part of James Bond becoming James Bond because he's a little bit more vulnerable, right? He's earning his stripes. He's a little more reckless. But Vesper, her decision-making, honestly, just kind of makes me very frustrated. And how even at the end of the movie, she essentially kills herself. Like, she could have allowed herself to live, and she locks herself in the elevator shaft. Like, she purposely does that.
Yeah.
And then Bond, he's in love with this woman, and then realizes, she's a humongous traitor, essentially. And it's just, it's a little confusing to me because you didn't really see it coming, sure, so it's a good part of the movie, but just her character frustrates me to no end. Very, very frustrating character.
So I thought the same thing, but Phil will be very proud. I researched it and found out why, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Because
I don't do
yes,
research.
it's frustrating, and I didn't get it at times, and the twists and turns. She fell in love with Bond. She threw the key away as she's drowning because she thought that if he took the time to get her, he would drown too. She also didn't turn on him on purpose. She was trying to save her boyfriend. The whole thing about the necklace. There's a whole thing about what does that mean, and they don't explain it. I think it was from him, and he's being held captive, and so those guys want Bond's cash, and so she's trying to get it without screwing Bond, no pun intended, completely. So it's a very woven, deep story.
Yeah.
But it actually, in the spectrum of the film, it actually makes some sense.
It does.
So a lot of people are trying to get their money back from Le Chiffre. They feel like the money that Bond won...
Which, by the way, is a great name.
Le Chiffre?
Le Chiffre.
Le Chiffre.
You call?
Sounds like a hockey
With
player.
his bloody
Yeah.
eye.
Here comes Le
Starman.
Chiffre down the left wing.
Yeah, so he owed people a lot of money. So he not only did he just to for people because the first couple times I watched this, I wasn't totally clear on all of the different intricacies, but Le Chiffre is a banker for terrorist cells. So he is essentially he handles the flow of money back and forth between terrorist cells and missions and things like that. And what he did was he knew that there was going to be a terrorist attack on this Skyfleet plane at the Miami airport, and Skyfleet's stock was rising. And so he took money from the was it the Ugandans, I guess? He
Yes.
took money from the Ugandans and essentially shorted stock on Skyfleet. There's that moment at the beginning where he takes their money, he's going to invest it, and the guy on the other line of the phone goes, "Well, you're betting against the market. Like this Skyfleet
Right.
stock is going up," and he says, "Just do it."
But
right?
he knew something.
So the problem is, obviously, if the terrorist threat had gone to plan, that plane gets blown up, the stock plummets, right? Oh my God, what's wrong with Skyfleet? The stock plummets or whatever. And then these guys all make a bunch of money. Well, James Bond thwarts it. And so now he needs to get into this poker game to try and win $100 million so he can, pay his investors back. And James Bond thwarts that. So now these people all want their money. And Vesper was basically used as a vessel to obtain the money for these terrorists and spare James Bond's life at the end of the movie. So that's what happened.
And she did love James Bond.
She did.
But
Yeah.
but the guy who watched him and was supposed to be his ally during the poker game is the guy that screwed him completely.
Oh,
Because
the
he
officer,
told
the-
Felix Leiter?
he told Le Chiffre of the Tell. No, who was the guy? The
Who
was with Vesper the whole time.
You're not talking about Felix. Felix is the CIA guy.
Yeah.
You're talking
He's
about,
fine.
Yeah, you're talking about Mathis.
But Mathis, because he then went and told Le Chiffre that Bond said, you've got to tell.
Yep. So Bond...
He double-crossed him.
That's how Bond got eliminated the first time from the game.
Yes.
Thank God for rebuy poker games, by the way. You know, if you
and that guy got him back in, right?
Actually, it was Felix Leiter.
Felix got him back in.
The United States got James Bond back into the game.
And
so
I did also like, though, that even though she like basically breaks his heart and double crosses him, he like denounces her at the end of the phone to M. Like, I thought that was awesome.
The bitch is dead.
Yeah.
Can I say this quickly, though? The one thing that I didn't like about how Daniel Craig played that is when he falls goofy in love with her, it's too much.
He resigns as a
but
double.
Like your character,
Yes.
to Dex's point, his character was pretty consistent, right? He's a no BS type of guy.
Likes married women.
It's a good character.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, like, it's like he totally just falls goofy in love, and it's like, no, this guy would not do that.
No, but he does. But this is according to the Ian Fleming books. Like, this is how
I think
what
Ian
happens.
got it wrong, Phil.
But let me explain something.
I think Ian screwed up. Okay,
Let me explain something.
Rewrite.
So this movie is essentially a prequel to all of the other Bond movies. Because the movie starts with him becoming a 007 agent. And the great scene, we played the clip off the top where the guy, you have to get 2 kills to graduate to 00 status. And the guy is in the middle of the sentence saying the second kill is the toughest one to come by, and Bond cuts him off and shoots him. Real tough to get that second kill.
Yeah.
But part of the Bond character over time, part of the reason why he treats women so terribly is because he has this hardened shell around his heart from the Vesper Lind relationship. There's also not all the Bond movies are like linear stories, but there's one. George Lazenby was the only one-time James Bond. He played Bond after Sean Connery, but was not good enough. Like he didn't really click. He was more of a model, wasn't an actor, and they voice tracked a lot of his stuff because his accent was bad. And then they brought Connery back. But in George Lazenby's only Bond movie, which was called On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it's like 1968 or something.
That's a great title for one, by the way.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service. He actually gets married. He falls in love and gets married in the movie, and then she gets killed immediately after the wedding.
Yes.
And so there's 2 Bond movies of the 25 or whatever there's 2 Bond movies that sort of solidify why he is such a bad womanizer, because he doesn't want this to ever happen to him ever again.
I just thought his character went too far.
Yeah, and he would admit that at the
As
end
you
by
said,
saying
he
the
resigned.
bitch is dead.
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, let's go with he falls in love. Okay, I don't need him to become a simpering wimp. He just became so wimpy, and then he just goes back. Click on Bond again.
Right.
So
It's a good character.
we've talked about some of these poker scenes. My least favorite part about this movie, because I'm such a poker nerd, and when this movie came out, I was like playing online poker for a living, and the poker scenes in this movie are my least favorite part.
I can understand that even as someone who's not a poker player. Like, I'm not a big... I know 5-card and I know blackjack, but Hold'em has always confused the hell out of me because it's all about basically...
Hold'em's the simplest form of poker,
Is
though.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, because to me it's so confusing. So some of the card games to me, like, crap, like I don't really understand what's going on.
So Hold'em is 2... Every player gets 2 cards. And then by the end of the betting rounds, there's 5 community cards on the table. So you have 2 cards, there's 5 on the table. So there's 7 total cards. And you have to make the best 5-card hand possible of the 7. Now, then there's also similar forms like stud. Everyone starts with 2 cards down, and then everyone gets dealt their own 5-card runs. But I'm going to get real poker nerdy on you guys here, okay? The things that bothered me the most in general. So the first poker scene, you had this sleazy Alex Dimitrios guy who goes all in this cash game, and so he goes, I'm all in. He's got a great hand, so he's going to go all in. He's got his trip kings or whatever. And they have professional dealers. It's like a poker club, right? This is like a professional.
Right.
I would assume there's like a house and stuff. This isn't like an underground game. It's at a casino.
Right.
He goes all in, and then he says, wait, pulls out his car keys and tosses his car keys to his Aston Martin on the table.
Yep.
It's like, wait, okay, so now what are we, is there an extra $200,000 on the table now? And James Bond goes, no, it's okay. It's okay.
Right.
Because he's got a better hand, of course. And the dealer tries to step in, but they just no, we'll just put the
He tried to write a check first, right?
Yes.
for more. And,
Checks
and
aren't
they're,
good.
they're like, no. And
Fine,
then he
puts his
tosses
car
the
keys.
Yeah, but it's Bond. Like, that's not surprising.
No, but here's why it's ridiculous. Like, you don't have what's called the nuts. The nuts in poker is the best hand on the board. So if there's a flush on the board and you've got the ace of spades, like you've got the best possible flush, right? If you don't have that, don't throw in your car because somebody else could have a better hand and beat you. But when James Bond rakes the pot and says, "Oh, the valet ticket," that's a great scene. Or he asks for the valet ticket after he just to rub it into that guy. Oh yeah. Then there's the hand at the very end, like the last hand of the whole thing. And Texas Hold'em, just to put this into context, in Texas Hold'em, if you wind up with like 2 pair or 3 of a kind in a hand, like that's a really good hand in Texas Hold'em. A flush, and that depends on what the board is, but like a flush is a great hand. Full house over full house, you might see that once in a while. This hand was 4 guys all in for all of the money on the table. You had an ace high flush, you had 2 full houses, and then James Bond comes in with a straight flush over the top to rake the $120 million or whatever it was on the table. And then, so like that hand is like, first of all, it's like virtually impossible for all of those people to have those hands in that time. I would also say that once the first 2 guys are all in and there's a bigger stack in James Bond who's last to bet, Le Chiffre, without the best possible hand, isn't like putting all of his chips in too in a normal poker game. But like they all just went bonkers and put all their chips in.
I think you're supposed to suspend your
saying.
belief during the course of this entire film.
But the thing that drove me the most nuts about the poker in this game was, have you guys ever heard of slow rolling in gambling?
No.
So it's something like the old time gamblers, like the Doyle Brunsons from back in the 70s and 80s, would literally like you'd get your ass kicked in the parking lot or somebody would put a shotgun to your head. So the 3 of us are playing poker and the hand is over and like Judd shows his hand and he's got 3 jacks. And he thinks like, and like no one else turns their cards over. It's like, oh, Judd. So Judd starts to like rake the pot. And then Declan comes in and he's like, actually, like 30 seconds later, actually, I've got 3 aces. And then so it's called slow rolling your opponent, where you know that you've won, but you let them kind of think that they've won for like 20 seconds and then you flip your cards over.
Yeah.
This happened on every single hand, basically. They're just like taunting each other and slow rolling. That would lead to altercations, fights, especially with terrorist groups.
Well, it did lead to shooting.
It did.
I mean, eventually it led to death, just
So-
not of James Bond.
So I thought the poker scenes.
I like how that's the
over
one
the top.
thing where you're like, that wasn't done right.
I knew there was going to be something with him with poker.
The car chases are all plausible, especially when they put the gal in the middle of the road and Bond misses her by inches and tips his car and it flips 18 times.
Actually,
and he's okay.
That's the next thing we should talk about: the torture scene,
Oh God.
where Le Chiffre cuts the bottom of the chair out. James Bond is sitting in the chair,
That's a
A-
walk in the park, man.
a rope with a knot at the end.
Yeah,
What do you mean a walk in the park?
that's a walk in the park. Lethal Weapon was way worse. They shocked him with water.
Did they
running?
Did they
Did
shock
it shock his manhood?
You didn't see it. They might have.
Maybe.
They very well might have, and he killed the guy with his legs. He snapped his neck. That's what you get.
I think this is an athlete challenge. I think we should take Judd Zolgad.
Yeah, no.
We should tie you up in a shower and shock you.
I'm just
then we
saying-
should take a rope to your.
You're not having any
man's-
kids.
I'm just
You'll be
saying,
fine.
if I had to rank the torture scenes so far that we've seen through our films, the Le Chiffre one, it hurts, but it's not the worst one.
I don't know, man.
Lethal Weapon's the worst one to me.
I mean, I don't know.
I like how Declan's out on it.
It is.
Neither one of them will be comfortable, but Declan, if you had to choose right now, someone like a terrorist group has taken you captive.
Yeah.
You can either be hung from your arms straight up in a shower
And be shocked.
which would across like your torso,
Which would probably kill you.
Shocked.
or
Shocked. Shocked.
Oh,
Nothing
no,
to do
no,
with
no.
down there.
I'm
Honestly,
taking down there.
Put me out. Just put
I'm
me
taking
out.
down there.
No.
No.
I'm taking that one.
Put me
Judd,
out.
You're
dude.
like way too quick to take the rope.
I'm
God,
taking the rope.
man.
I'm taking the rope. I'm taking the rope because it's going to hurt like hell, but I can survive it. The shock
I don't
thing,
know
I
if
think,
you would
kills me.
survive it. I feel like you'd probably bleed out too. That's the other thing. Like, you know,
Well,
that's not going
He
to
didn't
not
really
cause
start to bleed
lacerations
from down there. Like you just saw
I
some.
can't do it.
I mean, he looked fine.
Oh my god.
He got tipped back. That might have hurt eventually.
Disgusting. Declan, this is your platform now to talk about your love for Daniel Craig.
Yeah, Daniel Craig is just like a badass dude, and I want to hang out and be best friends with Daniel Craig. I don't think it's too weird. I don't think I'm crossing a line. He seems like a guy who can also put down some drinks, and I would love to just pick his brain.
Have you guys seen Knives Out?
I haven't. It's
excellent.
Not yet.
It's a great cast, and I really want to see it.
Totally different. He plays a totally different character. He plays like a Southern Texan.
I've seen Layer Cake, which is a good Daniel Craig film.
Okay.
But I would just love to hang out and drink some cocktails with Daniel Craig. Pick his brain. Let him just dissect me and my poor decisions that I make. Like it could be a great two-way street. Maybe I can provide some insight to Daniel
I don't
Craig.
think he would talk to you a lot about you.
That's fine.
He strikes me as a guy that would talk a lot about him. Didn't he?
I don't know.
Get tired of the Bond
He
character
doesn't. I don't
too?
know if he. I don't think he's very narcissistic in that way.
Yeah,
He like doesn't
think
want to
so.
be James Bond. He hasn't wanted
Didn't
to
he
be
get
James
tired
Bond
of
for
it?
like 3 movies, but he gets 20 million every
Isn't
time.
the rumor that the next one coming out is his last one? I think it's not
Yes.
even a rumor. I think it's pretty much confirmed.
Yep, and they're trying to find a new Bond. In fact, if you want it, there is a casting section here.
I read it. Yeah, it's filled with some pretty good names.
Let me find this here real quick here because Casino Royale. Let's go to Wikipedia because there was a lot of controversy over him getting the part. He was Pierce Brosnan. This is maybe a good segue into Bond rankings here, but I want to read this to you guys. So Pierce Brosnan's last Bond movie was 2002, and there was a 4-year gap before Casino Royale came out, and they went through like a bunch of different, like one of the other lead candidates to get the gig was Croatian actor Goran Višnjić, who auditioned for the role the same day as Craig, but he was reportedly unable to master a British accent, which is kind of key. New Zealander Carl Urban was considered, but he was unable to make the screen test due to film commitments, according to Martin Campbell.
So it really didn't. He was not that big then,
No.
as far as trying to be the next James Bond if he couldn't make it.
Correct. Henry Cavill was the only other actor in serious contention for the role, but at 22 years old, he was considered too young. Daniel Craig was in his mid-30s. Now, Idris Elba has been the one for 10 years that's been rumored to be the one that comes after
nice.
Bond.
Yeah.
But he's also like getting too old now.
Yeah, he's up.
Could
he's in
Cavill
his
come
50s.
back?
No,
Now?
Cavill could probably come back now.
Yeah, he's probably what, 30 now?
He would be
Or no, would be-
almost 40 years
yeah.
old now. Yep. And so this is the write-up from. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. From the Daily Mail, I should say. I'm butchering this. The Daily Mirror ran a front-page news story critical of Daniel Craig when he was announced as James Bond with the headline, "The name's Bland, James Bland." Craig, unlike previous actors, was not considered to be the protesters of him being Bond, to the tall, dark, handsome, and charismatic image of James Bond to which viewers have become accustomed to. And so there were protests. There was a website that was created for it was called like DanielCraigIsNotJamesBond.com in 2005, 2006. And so he really had to win people over with Casino Royale, and he did. He has become pretty widely known as an excellent Bond.
I've got one thing. For the first time, I believe in my life, I'm going to say this. Thank God for being able to turn on the subtitles on my TV, because I could not understand a large portion of what Daniel Craig was saying.
Really?
And then Dawn's like, turn on the closed captioning. And I said, how do you do that?
Like
And
you
she
couldn't
came
understand
out-
his accent? Or
I
what-
couldn't understand the words because the accent was so thick.
Is it that thick?
It was really
Well,
thick
let's
to
play-
me.
let's play a
It was
couple.
really thick. I really struggled
All right. Let's play.
early, and then I got it.
All right, hold on a second here.
Closed captioning.
Let's,
What else can you surmise, Mr. Bond?
About you, Miss Lind? Well, your beauty's a problem. You worry you won't be taken seriously.
Which one can say of any attractive woman with half a brain?
True, but this one overcompensates by wearing slightly masculine clothing, being more aggressive than her female colleagues, which gives her a somewhat prickly demeanor, and ironically enough, makes it less likely for her to be accepted and promoted by her male superiors, who mistake her insecurities for arrogance. Now, I'd have normally gone with only child, but, you see, by the way you ignored the quip about your parents, I'm going to have to go with orphan.
Headphones on now, it's fine.
Sure.
At home, on the couch, and it wasn't, but by that point, I think it had cleared itself up. But the first portion of the film, I struggled.
So I think we're finding that
I struggled
that
with his accent.
Spy movies are not for Judd, and British accents are not for Judd.
Well, I need the British accent just not to be too thick.
We just proved that she's guilty, not that he's innocent.
Yeah, like
Could have been
that.
a double blind. Keep sweating him.
You don't trust anyone, do you, James?
Helen Mirren.
No.
Then you've learnt your lesson. Get back as soon as you can. We need you.
Will do.
If you do need time,
Why should I need more time? Job's done. The bitch is dead.
James, did you ever ask yourself why you weren't killed that night? Isn't it obvious? She made a deal to spare your life in exchange for the money. I'm sure she hoped they would let her live. But she must have known she was going to her death. And now we'll never know who was behind this. The trail's gone cold.
What about Judi Dench? Can you understand
Judi Dench, 1,000%. I could.
What's the
God
difference?
bless her,
Yeah.
because she speaks a little more clear. She's just a little more clear. Her accent's perfect. She's got the perfect accent for Judd. I didn't miss a word Judi Dench said. She's fabulous. I love her.
I feel like it's harder to understand people from Boston than it is to understand Daniel Craig's British accent.
I'm telling you, the first part of that film, until Dawn came in and flipped on my closed captioning, I was struggling to understand him.
Can you not figure out how to turn on the closed captioning? Did Don have to save the day?
I didn't know how.
Okay, yeah.
It's a little
Also
B
good.
on my remote control.
Struggle bus.
It's a little
over
B
here.
thing because there's like an A, B, C, and D, and you got to push the B, and then you got to turn the closed captioning on. I mean, now I know, but I struggled with him. Judi Dench, no problem.
The best line of the movie to me was when Vesper says, when they're falling in love and Bond is now like being wrapped up from his rope torture and they're about to enter the passcode into the briefcase for the money. And Vesper goes, "If all that was left of you was your smile and your little finger, you'd still be more of a man than anyone I've ever met." And Bond leans in and goes, "That's because you know what I can do with my little finger."
Yeah, that was a good line.
That's a pretty awesome line.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I dug it.
But of course, he was becoming a wimp then too for a while, so I didn't like
He
that.
snapped
as
out
much.
of it. He
I
snapped out
know,
of
but
it.
it was like when Fonzie lost his cool. It's like, this isn't the Fonzie I know. That's not the Bond I know. Plus, you got it. Plus, he's cynical about everybody, and all of a sudden, she's like, she was too good to be true.
Yeah. Well, I think every once every decade, you need Bond to catch some feelings, just to add a layer to his character. So just real quick, the Bond rankings. All right. I'm going to give you guys the definitive. I'm going to give you two lists real quick here.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the 5 best Bond movies, in my opinion, and then I'm going to rank the 6 Bonds in order. So I'm not putting these 5 movies in any order. I think if you're a fledgling James Bond viewer, you start with any of these 5 and bounce around, and these are sort of the 5 definitive Bond movies for me. 2 Daniel Craig movies, Casino Royale and Skyfall, are both excellent. Goldfinger and
Skyfall's not that old, right?
Skyfall's about 2012, I want to say,
that's what I
somewhere
thought.
there.
Okay.
Goldfinger and From Russia with Love are, for my money, the 2 best Sean Connery James Bond movies.
Okay.
And then the Roger Moore movie I like the most is The Spy Who Loved Me. So if we're going to do another Bond movie at some point, it'll probably be a Roger Moore movie, just to get the polar opposite, like tongue-in-cheek, different things to make fun of, like 70s clothing styles, etc. The Bond rankings for me, number 1, Sean Connery. He's just the icon, the legend. And then he went on to play the same character in The Rock in the mid-90s, which has gone under the radar. It's my theory. Number 2 is Daniel Craig. I think he's the 2nd best James Bond of all time. And where his character goes from this movie, he adds more humor to it. He adds more tongue-in-cheek. Like, it becomes a more fuller character after this movie. Number 3, Roger Moore for his own style. Number 4, the most disappointing Bond is Pierce Brosnan, to answer your question from earlier.
Thank you.
Pierce Brosnan
What happened?
was targeted to be James Bond after Roger Moore in the 80s, but he was part of, I think, an NBC
Remington
TV
Steele.
show. Remington Steele, yep. And he couldn't get out of his Remington Steele contract to do James Bond movies. And so they went to Timothy Dalton for 2 Bond movies, which were pretty good. But they were more like 80s action movies than they were Bond movies.
Okay.
And so I like Timothy Dalton. I would actually maybe put him above Pierce Brosnan, but Brosnan was more of a Bond than Dalton. And then George Lazenby 6. But Brosnan came in, did 4 blockbuster Bonds, was kind of a combination of like tongue-in-cheek but serious. But the movies were so hokey. It was like invisible cars and weird villains, and
So
they
it's
just
not
never
Pierce's
clicked for
fault?
me. I don't know, a little bit.
The writing you didn't like more
he
than
was
the
fine.
character?
They just felt like sort of campy action movies. They didn't feel like they were big, but for my money, he's 4th on this list. It's
Okay.
Sean Connery, Daniel Craig, Roger Moore, and Pierce Brosnan.
Really quick, rapid fire guys that you would want to see be Bond, because I have a list of best looking
Oh my God,
IMDb
dude.
guys
There's-
under 40.
It's got to be British people. I don't know enough British
Okay.
actors. I mean, Idris Elba would have been amazing like 5 or 10 years
Well-
ago, and would have been the first black Bond.
I think one that could be good would be Chris Hemsworth.
Okay.
Hemsworth could be one. Some of these guys are American, but Chris Evans.
Yeah, okay.
I could see that. Ryan Gosling. Do you think he has enough action in him?
Oh, he does.
He has a lot of the Bond poise, but does he have like the brute and like strength?
I think Ryan Gosling's an interesting one, but I don't know. Like he'd have to nail the accent.
Yeah.
I almost feel like he's too famous now. It's got to be someone who's a little bit more under the radar that becomes famous because of their character.
Chris Pine?
Nah.
No. This is going down great, guys.
I like how it feels like.
Yeah, no.
No, just to be kind. No.
I think that's mostly my list.
Okay.
here.
I don't know. It's probably going to be somebody that that we're not super familiar with.
An
in the United
unknown
States.
Gosling would have been good.
Yeah. But he was known at like age 20.
Right,
from
but I'm
Remember
just
the
saying
Titans.
I'm just saying that could work. Because I think he could do the accent.
I think it's got to be.
He can act.
It's got to be someone from the other side of the pond, though. Like I don't.
Okay.
I just don't
Look
know
at
if an
you.
American makes
Look
sense.
at you sticking to the staples of the.
It's a British
Hey.
film series, you know.
They thought Craig couldn't do it. He was brilliant.
Yeah, but at
You
least he
said so.
spoke the language.
I know,
at least,
I know,
well,
but I'm
according to
saying,
me,
man,
he didn't speak the language for you.
I couldn't understand him. You know what I want? An American James
He doesn't,
Bond.
like-
I want an American James Bond. Clooney as James Bond. You know what? Ben Affleck, because he talks slow too.
Oh,
hey,
God.
hey, stop right there. You're beautiful.
I'm trying to envision Judd like on the phone with AT&T or Xfinity support, and Daniel Craig gets on the line to help him, and Judd's like, I can't understand the guy on the other
Well,
side
then I
of the
would
phone.
tell
don't
Dawn,
know."
come in here and put the closed captioning on the phone on.
Go to the settings. The settings. It's on your It's under the menu button. What?
I'm just
What do
telling
you-
you,
I
go
can't
back and watch the
understand you.
first part of that film, and it's hard to understand him. I think it cleared itself up. I think he started to work things out.
Amazing.
All right, definitive bad guy rankings. Le Chiffre is our candidate here. So to this point, Hans Gruber from Die Hard is number 1. Cyrus the Virus from Con Air is number 2. Brad Wesley from Roadhouse is number 3. Mr. Joshua from Lethal Weapon is 4. Ivan Drago from Rocky 4 is 5th, and then we have a whole host of others. What's your instinct here for where to put Le Chiffre? Toward the top, toward the bottom?
I would put Le Chiffre towards the bottom of the pool that you just gave us. I
Okay.
would put him behind Drago, probably. It's a good character. It's a good bad guy. I can't tell you that I hated him that much, though.
So this might shock you. I would put him like maybe toward the bottom 5 of our entire list, actually, because like he wound up just being kind of a weakling. He was bad at everything, right? He was bad at coordinating a terrorist attack. He was bad at finishing off a poker
And the real
game.
bad guy is the guy that Bond goes and gets at the end.
Mr. White.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the real bad guy. Like Le Chiffre started just a pawn for the gangsters.
So because of all that, and you're right, like Le Chiffre is the main bad guy in the movie, but he's kind of a pawn for like the terrorist cells and
Yeah.
stuff. I just he was as far as like being a good actor and playing the part that he was supposed to play, he was good.
It's a great name, by the way, too. Though let's not forget Le Chiffre is one of the
Chiffre.
great names that we have
Your call.
talked about.
I don't think he can be higher than the aliens in Independence Day.
Okay, I'm fine
I
with
think
that.
he's below the aliens in Independence Day.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
After Drago, I really don't care.
Okay.
Like it's just a
It's a hodgepodge,
mismatch.
yeah.
Then
All right. 1 through 10 Seagal rankings. How many Seagulls would you give Casino Royale? Judd Zilgad.
Okay, I'm going to because the film's not really up my alley, but I realize that it is good. I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay. Yeah, because the context of this is like a 10 for Action Movie Rewind it's a great combination of like corny action. It's not necessarily like an Academy
your
Award 1
point-
through 10, right?
This was Sox Yanks in June. Like it's
Yeah.
a solid game,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's a little too long, and I really didn't like that. So 7 for me.
Dex?
Yeah, I have it as a 7 out of 10. It doesn't necessarily fit our complete action movie review guidelines, but it is an epic film in my opinion, and it's pretty, even though it's long, I think it's pretty captivating. So I would give it a 7 out of 10.
And it is legitimately one of my 10 favorite movies of all time. I love this movie. I love Daniel Craig. I love Bond movies. For the purposes of Action Movie Rewind, it's a 7.5. It's a 7.5. There's not enough things to make fun of. And I think
Right.
things to make fun of has to be part of our criteria here.
Yep.
And so with that, the composite score is a 7.2, which puts the rankings like this. Die Hard, Commando, Expendables, Roadhouse, and Hard to Kill are the top 5. Rocky 4, Independence Day, Point Break, Lethal Weapon, and Casino Royale round out the top 10 for us. So there it is. Action Movie Rewind. Judd Zolgad, it's your turn to pick for next week.
Okay, so I teased last week the possibility of a sequel. And I am going to go with an actor who we have seen before. It's not a sequel, but it really is in some ways. It's short and it's sweet. Released in 1991, running time 91 minutes. Out for Justice with Steven Seagal.
Wow.
We're going back to the Fun Factory, boys.
Wow.
We're
Okay.
going back to the Fun Factory. I make no promises, but it's filled. It's filled with great Seagal one-liners, and it's pretty awful at times, but that's what makes it so good. But the greatest thing, again, running time 91 minutes.
Getting back to the basics. Back to the.
We're going back.